我们请继续翻开圣经，
Now let's turn to the Bible.
提摩太后书第2章22节。
Let's turn to 2 Timothy chapter 22, verse 2.
22节，22。
Chapter 2, verse 22.
22节，你要逃避少年人的私欲，同那清心祷告主的人追求公义、信德、仁爱、和平。那昨天我们已经谈过啊，我们要怎么样能够逃避少年人的私欲？那就是要祷告追求这个底下这个4样东西。第一个是公义昨天我们已经谈了，要追求公义。
Verse 22, flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out with a pure heart. And we've discussed that in order to flee youthful lusts, we need to pursue all these 4 things. And so yesterday we talked about the first point, righteousness.
那这4个这个公义信心、仁爱、和平，不但是一个属灵的追求，也是跟我们日常生活息息相关的。
And these 4 things is not only related to our spirituality, but it's also affecting our daily lives.
比如说公义，我们要做对的事情，当然每一天我们都是要追求做对的事情。
Such as for righteousness, we all need to do the right thing every day.
那做了错的事情以后，比如说以后上班你做错事情了，可能会被公司解雇的。
And if we were to, for example, do something wrong in a job, then we might get fired.
做错事情导致别人的财务损失的话，那可能你要赔偿。
And if we were to do the wrong thing, then we might actually have to pay for it.
所以这个就是跟我们日常生活息息相关的。
And this is related to our daily lives.
因此我们要追求公义。
So we need to pursue after righteousness.
那么第2个是信心。
And so the second point is pursuing faith.
当然我们知道信心是这个信仰的领域。
And we can see that faith is very important.
好像是一个属灵的事情。
And this is it seems to be kind of related to spirituality.
事实上也是跟我们每天的生活呢有相关联。
But in actuality, it's related to our day-to-day lives.
比如说你到教会参加聚会以后要回家，那你要走哪一条路呢？你也是要相信你要走的那条路不会塞车，所以你才会走那条路回家。
For example, when you are finished with church and you need to go back home, you have faith that this road won't have any traffic.
那你们要选修那个科系为你的主修，你也是认为那个主修的课程对你有帮助你才会去把它变成是一个主修。
And you can take certain classes, and you have to believe that this type of class is applicable for you, and that's why you would take it as your major.
那你要结婚呢比如说弟兄你要结婚，那你相信娶某一位姐妹能够对你的人生带来幸福你才会娶她。
And so for the brothers, you might believe that a certain sister will bring you a blessed life if you marry her.
所以我们每一天都是做一些选择，那选择呢也是给予信心的。
And so every day we encounter all these different choices, and with these choices we require faith.
所以信心是跟我们日常生活是有相关联的。
And you can see how closely related faith is to our daily lives.
信心当然跟我们属灵的生活更是有相关联。
And you can see that faith has even more importance and relevance for our spirituality.
比如说雅各书的第1章第6节、第7节，那里就记载我们要向神求什么？要有信心。那假如是心怀两意的话，那我们就不能够从神那里得到什么。
And it says that in James that we need to pray to God with faith.
那希伯来书第11章的第6节是记载，我们假如没有信心的话，就不能够得到神的喜悦。
And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says, if we don't have faith, then we are unable to have the hope of God.
那我们在 NYTS 当中做了很多的祷告。
And in NYTS, we have already prayed a lot.
当然我们很希望我们做一个有信心的祷告。
And we hope that we can have a faithful prayer.
我们希望我们的祷告有体验，能够蒙神的垂听。
And hopefully we can have a prayer that has God would answer.
所以这个关键的因素啊，就是要有信心。
And the most crucial element of this is to have faith.
可是信心呢，也是一个很抽象的名词。
But faith is a very abstract idea for us.
虽然在希伯来书的11章1节，那里告诉我们信是所望之事的实底，是未见之事的确据。
And in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, it says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen.
但是呢，可能也停留在一个知识上的理解的。
And so this is kind of an explanation of it.
所以怎么样能够产生信心？信心的大小怎么来衡量？那这是我们今天要来学习的。
And so today we're going to learn about how we can develop our faith, or how we can determine how great our faith is.
那我们现在谈信心的由来，信心从哪里来？
And so today, right now, we're going to discuss where faith comes from.
那么第一个信心是由神直接来赏赐的。
And so the first point is that God directly bestows this faith upon us.
我们请看使徒行传第3章16节。
Let's turn to Acts chapter 3, verse 16.
使徒行传3章16节。
Chapter 3, verse 16.
3章16节，请你念。
3 verse 16, and his name, through faith in his name, has made this man strong, whom you see and know. Yes, the faith which comes through him has given him this perfect soundness in the presence of you all.
当时门徒们他们医治这个瘸腿不能够走路的人。
And so he's talking about this person, this lame man.
大家以为是这个因为使徒们他们很厉害呀，他们很虔诚啊，他们很有能力呀。
And so people would think that these disciples would have great power.
但是门徒他们却说不是跟我们没有关系这是因为神自己赏赐给这个瘸腿的人有信心。
And so the disciples say that it's not us, but it's actually God who gives this lame man faith, so he can be healed.
所以我们就可以看到信心从哪里来，是从神直接赏赐的。
And so we can see that faith comes from God directly.
那神透过这个圣灵给人有信心。
And God gives the Holy Spirit to those who believe.
所以这个信心呢，对于保罗来说呢，也是一种的恩赐，圣灵所赏赐的恩赐，是从神而来的。
And you can see it's a great. Paul even mentions that this faith is a grace from God.
所以有些时候呢，我们也不能够太责备人没有信心的，因为神没有给他信心的话，那也没办法。
And we can't really judge other people for not having so much faith. They cannot really control it.
所以我们只能够祷告神求神赏赐给他信心。
And all we can do is really pray for them so that God can bestow this faith upon them.
那有信心的话，他自然就能够接受圣经所说的真理。
And so once they've received this faith, they could also receive the grace of the Holy Spirit.
然后他会相信我们所传的。
And they will believe in what we are preaching.
所以很多人好像来听到讲的他听得头头是道他觉得很有道理。可是呢，神假如没有给他信心，他还是不会接受洗礼。
So many people can come visit and listen to the sermons and think it makes quite a lot of sense. But if God doesn't give them the faith, then they won't be baptized. They won't get baptized.
那第二个方面是跟我们有相关联的，就是要经过一个追求。
And so another aspect of it is that we need to pursue after it.
所以第一个部分是神直接赏赐。
So the first aspect is that God directly bestows this faith.
因此我们要祷告神求神赏赐给我们信心。
So we need to pray that God will give us this faith.
那么第二个方面，我们自己也可以追求。
Another aspect is that if we were to directly pursue it.
请看帖撒罗尼迦后书帖撒罗尼迦后书第1章。
Let's turn to 2 Thessalonians chapter 1.
第3节。
2 Thessalonians chapter 1 verse 3.
帖撒罗尼迦后书第1章第3节。
2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 3.
全体念。
3. We are bound to thank God always for you, brethren, as it is fitting, because your faith grows exceedingly, and the love of every one of you all abounds towards each other.
第4节。
Verse 4, so that we ourselves boast of you among the churches of God for your patience and faith in all your persecutions and tribulations that you endure.
所以这里我们看到2个层次的2个问题。第一个是信心是可以增长的，可以慢慢长进的，慢慢进步的。
And you can see there that faith right here, it mentions that faith, it can grow.
就是我们自己可以追求慢慢由于我们对前面一个神的恩典的累积那我们都知道那我们所求的神都会垂听那慢慢累积这个属灵的经历经验。
And we can see our faith will gradually grow if we slowly accumulate God's grace.
我们知道上次祷告的功效以后呢，然后就增加我们信心。那这一次也是一样的方法，我们凭着信心祷告神一定会垂听的。
And we can, after we experience God's grace, we can know that God praying to God will be effective, and we will have faith in God will answer.
那这里提到第2个方面，就是我们有信心以后呢，要持守，要保持这个信心。
And the other aspect mentioned in this verse is that once we develop this faith, then we need to continue to maintain this faith.
因为当我们碰到患难，还是经过很长时间的祷告以后觉得为什么神还没有垂听呢？我们可能会暂时要失去的信心。
And so let's just say that we encounter a problem and we pray for a long time. We might wonder, why hasn't God answered me? And we might lose our faith in God.
所以经过患难这里我们看第4节说，仍旧这些信徒呢虽然遭遇到一些逼迫患难，但是他们仍旧存着忍耐和信心，就是能够保持这个信心的。
And you can see that the churches here, they experienced persecutions and tribulations, but they endured in patience and faith.
所以我们要追求信心的成长，而且呢还要保持我们所追求到的这个信心。
So we need to continue to develop our faith, but also we need to maintain our faith, even in difficulty.
这个是要经过长时间好像跑传道所讲的，我们这些属灵追求都是一辈子的事情是 long life 的事情。
And this type of development is something that we need to think about for our entire lives.
这个我们整个人生都是要一直追求才不会失落。
So within our entire lives, we need to pursue after this faith.
那我们在这个追求过程当中，对神的恩典一直累积。
And within this pursuit of faith, we need to slowly accumulate the small graces of God.
可能每一次的体验都会不一样。
And maybe our experiences are slightly different every time.
所以我们就会学会忍耐学会交托。
And we can slowly learn how to endure and learn how to entrust.
那真正的交托以后，我们内心就会产生无比的平安。
And after we learned how to fully entrust in God, then we will have unparalleled peace.
那真正的平安神所赏赐的平安就是虽然我们还没有得到我们所求的神还没有应许我们所求的，但是呢，我们好像已经得到了，所以我们就放心了。
And with this peace within Christ means that even though God has not answered us, within our hearts we feel as if God had already done it.
所以神是不是有答应我们的祈求那就不是很重要的。
So whether or not God has fully granted our prayers does not really matter.
这个叫做以神为乐。
And this is what it means to be happy in the Lord.
也叫做基督里的平安。
And this is what also means to have peace within Christ.
这个就是一个神迹
And this in itself is a miracle.
虽然我们还处在患难当中我们所要的还没有得到。
Even though maybe our children, they go through difficulty and we haven't received an answer from God yet.
但是我们看起来好像得到的。
But we look at it as if we've already received an answer from God.
那这一种就是一个真正的平安。
And this is true peace.
我们请看哥林多后书第6章。
Let's look at 2 Corinthians.
哥林多后书，对，哥林多后书第6章。
2 Corinthians chapter 6.
第7节。
2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 7.
好，请你念到第10节。
2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 7 to 7 to 10. By the word of the truth, by the power of God, by the armor of righteousness, on the right hand and on the left, by honor and dishonor, yet by evil report and good report, as deceivers and yet true, as unknown and yet well known, as dying and behold we live, as chastened yet not killed, as sorrowful yet always rejoicing, as poor yet making many rich, as having nothing and yet possessing all things.
好，我们就看第10节哈，说好像是
Look at
忧
verse 10.
愁啊，好像是忧愁，却是常常快乐
It says in verse 10, as sorrowful yet always rejoicing.
啊，所以别人看我们哈好像我们现在因为疫情关系暂时失去工作啊，那我们就减少收入啊。
Due to this pandemic, we might have received less pay from our work, or we might have even been laid off.
那别人看我们很可怜，哎呀，你这很可怜，现在你要工作啊，没有收入。
And so people might think of us as very pitiful, as we don't really have an income or a job.
啊，可是呢，我们确实很快乐啊，因为虽然没有收入，就也是好像有收入一样，我们还是天天很快乐的。
So even though we might not have this income, we are very, very happy as if we do have this income.
啊，所以好像是贫穷了，却是富足了。
So as we are poor, yet we are making many rich.
啊，是真正的贫穷啊，是真正的忧愁啊，是值得忧愁啊，是真正的贫穷。但是呢，我们好像已经得着了，所以我们就放心。
So we are maybe actually sorrowful, or we're actually poor, but we seem like we're always rejoicing and we are actually rich.
所以我们要所追求这种的信心呢。
So we need to pursue after this type of faith.
啊，所以主耶稣告诉我们说，你们要祈求哈，那就得着。那你凭着信心祈求的话，啊，那个你所求的就变成你的啊。
And so God asks that, whatever you ask, you will receive.
啊，这是我们心中的信念，我们心中的信念，这是我们的信仰，信心。
And this is what faith is.
好，那我们现在来看怎么来得到信心增长，怎么来追求信心。
So how can we pursue after faith?
啊，那我们就看这个圣经里头的一些故事呢，来教导我们怎么样来追求信心。
Let's look at a story in the Bible to show us how we can pursue after faith.
啊，请看马太福音哈，马太福音
Let's look at the Gospel of Matthew.
15章
Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15.
啊，15章21节。
Gospel of Matthew, chapter 15, verse 21.
啊，这个新约圣经的故事大家都很熟悉。
I'm sure that everybody is very familiar with this story in the New Testament.
啊，那因为时间关系呢，不用读，我就把这个比较重点我就点出来。
Because of time restraints, we won't read it, but we will talk about the main points.
啊，那么这个是有一个迦南妇人。
We can see that there was this woman.
啊，所以22节说说她的女儿被鬼附着很痛苦。
You can see in verse 22 that her daughter is severely demon possessed. It's very painful.
啊，自己的女儿生病很痛苦，当然做妈妈的也很痛苦。
And if your daughter is sick, then of course, and they're experiencing a lot of pain, for a mother, it would be very painful as well.
那她一定有找方法来解决但是没有办法使她的女儿这种的痛苦解除。
And so she's already tried to solve this problem, but she's unable to really alleviate her daughter's pain.
啊，女儿碰到那么大的难题当然她一定会帮女儿想办法去解决她的困难。
And you can see that this daughter has undergone such a difficult problem. So of course she's going to try to solve this problem for her daughter.
一定没有办法得到其他的答案，其他的解决方法。
And she has no other real answer to solve this problem.
所以就来找主耶稣了。
And so she went to Jesus.
啊，所以我们看这个妇人就是有困难的。
You can see that this woman, she is undergoing some kind of trial.
她才有这个动机来找耶稣了。
And this type of suffering allowed it to be a motivation to look for Jesus.
那才有后来主耶稣告诉他说28节，主耶稣告诉他说：“妇人你的信心是大的。”
And because of this, in verse 28, Jesus answers, "O woman, great is your faith."
说假若没有这个妇人的女儿生病的话，他就不会来找主耶稣，那就他跟主耶稣就没有互动，主耶稣就不会告诉他说你的心情是大，因为两个人不会碰面的。
And if this woman didn't have if this woman's daughter was not severely demon possessed, then she wouldn't have gone to Jesus, and Jesus wouldn't have said how great her faith is, because they wouldn't have even met each other.
所以苦难为什么苦难就是熬练一个人信心，给一个人的展现信心的机会，就是苦难。
And this suffering allows for people to really develop their faith.
所以这个妇人他就抓住这个机会啊。
You can see that this woman, she took this opportunity.
所以做事的人他说啊，我受苦啊是与我有益的。
And you can see that so cool. You can see
suffer.
Oh, and you can see that you can see that suffering allows for it's good for me that I've been afflicted.
那圣经在罗马书第8章28节那里记载这个万事28、29万事互相效力，叫爱神的人得益处罗马书第8章。
And you can see in Romans chapter 8 verse 28 that all things work together for good for those who love God.
所以我们所遭遇的事情都是与我们有益处的。
You can see that the suffering is actually for our own good.
所以人在年幼的时候负恶是好的在年轻的时候有困难有重担是好的。
And it's good for a man to bear yoke in his youth, so it's good for us to experience this type of suffering.
但是呢，我们现在你要祷告的话，你说我有什么困难，可能一时也想不起来，因为大家都很舒服。
And while you're praying, you might think, oh, it's very difficult to think of any sort of suffering. I'm very comfortable.
我看你们这个影像你们坐的椅子都可以摇来摇去的好像是大老板所坐的椅子，很舒服啊。
I can see in your little webcams that all of your chairs, you can swing it around as if you're the boss.
那这个房子我看你们的房子很舒服，那有的上面有电风扇在转的这个天气热所以有电风扇也有冷气窗帘也很漂亮，我看你们的房子都很漂亮。
And your house seems very comfortable, and you have you might have fans, or you might have air conditioning, and you have very nice windowsills.
尤其是现在好像这个瑞文传道所讲的，你们现在在家里参加 NYTS， 你们要洗澡洗多久就能够洗多久啊。
And as Pastor Raymond has mentioned before, now that we're attending NYTS at our own home, you can shower for however long you want.
所以你说我有什么困难，想一想好像没有什么困难。
And if you think about it, if you think about what kind of suffering do I have, you might not think of any.
所以我们要认识自己的困难
So we need to understand where our suffering is.
要认识自己的确是很难。
And to understand ourselves is very difficult.
所以我们看这个雅各跟约翰他们是不认识自己
And you can see there's a story in that James and John, they don't really understand themselves.
这个撒玛利亚的人不接待主耶稣这一些人那么约翰他就很生气说哎呀，从天上降下火来烧这些人
You can see that there's a Samaritan woman, and that made John quite angry, and so he wanted to send fire down from heaven.
来 consume 他们，把这些人烧掉，烧死了。
And so he wanted this fire to consume all of them and burn them to death.
那主是说你在想什么？你在说什么？你根本就不知道，你就不认识你自己
And what Jesus says is that you don't really recognize even yourself.
他不认识他自己，原来他脾气很暴躁
And you don't even recognize yourself, and your temper is so bad.
那他还很洋洋得意我跟这主耶稣，你看我们很厉害的，主耶稣能够行神迹我们跟主耶稣在一起，哇，很厉害的，很了不得的。
And they might have thought, oh wow, I'm so great. I'm with Jesus, and Jesus can produce all these miracles.
那彼得也是一样，彼得说主你走到哪里去，我就跟哪里去。你要去死的话，我也跟你一起去死。
And Peter said the same thing, where he said, "Oh, Peter, oh Jesus, if you go anywhere, I will go anywhere. If you die, I will die."
那事实上，主耶稣在里头流眼泪主耶稣说：“你很软弱你等一下要3次不认我
Jesus actually was crying and saying, Jesus, Peter, you are actually very weak. You will actually betray me. You deny me.
你还以为你很勇敢
You think that you're so brave.
所以真的是我们不认识自己呀、
So we don't really recognize ourselves.
所以我们就不知道我们的困难在哪里呀、
So we don't even know where our difficulties or problems are.
所以我们一定是有困难的。
So we definitely do have suffering.
所以圣经说我们安逸安逸不虑，那些不会烦恼好像整天做着梦时，整天也不知道做什么，不知道怎么祷告的人有祸了。
And the Bible mentions that there is woe for those who are really at ease and take everything so relaxed.
所以怎么产生信心？就是我们这里有困难不能够解决的时候，你有什么困难你的家庭、你自己你们的父母亲有什么困难你们现在家庭经济状况你的灵性状况，你个人的脾气有什么困难？这个都是一个大难题，那只有能够来找主耶稣才能够解决的。
So we have. So how can we develop this faith? We look at any of our problems, whether we have economical problems or we have any sort of temper issues. We can all take this up to God.
就好像这个妇人，她没有这个困难的话，她哪里会来找主耶稣啊？
So it's just like this woman. She had this problem and she brought it up to Jesus.
那第二个我们看这个妇人她连续3次喊着说：“主啊！”我们看22节说：“主啊，大卫的子孙可怜我。”然后25节他的主啊，27节他说：“主啊，3次他喊着主啊。”
And so you can see that this woman, she kept on saying, "Oh Lord," in verse 22, and also in verse 25, and also in verse 27.
我们看她是迦南的妇人她不是以色列人
And you can see that this woman is of Canaan. She's not an Israelite.
所以她竟然能够喊出主啊，大卫的子孙
And she even says, "Oh Lord, son of David."
大卫是大家所知道以色列以前的国王
And King David was a very famous king of the Israelite kingdom.
大卫就是开国的元老，开国的那个他们开国好像我们美国的华盛顿将军一样，是开国的元老。
He's kind of seen as this forefather of the kingdom, just like America's Washington.
所以这个开国的这个开创者的子孙当然是很荣耀
So of course, this title is very noble, as it's like the forefather of the nation.
所以他就赞美神，他说主啊，赞美神。
So she's praising God. She's saying, "Oh Lord."
所以对耶稣有清楚的认识才能够产生交托。
And so in order to fully entrust into God, you need to know who God is.
要有交托的心才能够有平安
In order to have that heart to entrust, that you can get peace.
那有平安才能够发出感恩赞美的声音
And once you have peace, you're able to have this thankful praise.
所以我相信这个时候这个迦南妇人已经内心有平安了。
And you can see that this woman, she already has this peace.
这个相信大家都有很多的体验我个人有体验，就是真正交托的话，哇，内心一片平安。虽然呢，眼前的问题还没有被解决。
I'm pretty sure all of you guys have experienced in this, in which the time in which you fully entrust things, you will have this peaceful heart, even though it might not have been solved.
因为时间关系没有办法做这个见证这个我个人的体验。
Because of time restraints, I will not be discussing my personal experience in this.
那我刚刚为什么讲说这个妇人一定内心有平安呢？
How do you know that this woman had this peace in her heart?
因为我们看到门徒要来阻挡他说：“你不要喊叫你不要来麻烦主耶稣啊。”
You can see that in verse 23 that his disciples were provoking this woman, saying, "Send her away, for she cries out after us."
而且呢，主耶稣还告诉他说：“这个不好拿儿女的饼丢给狗吃，把它看成是狗啊。”
And Jesus even says it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. So he's calling her a dog.
要是我的话，听到这些话，我就走了。有什么了不起我在找别人，我就走了，就离开了。
If I were this woman, then I would have just left. I thought, wow, Jesus is like looking down on me. I'll just find a different person.
因为会生气
Because I would be very angry.
受到这种的侮辱，当然是会生气啊。
If anybody said this, of course you would be angry.
他说他一定内心有平安啊，他说没无所谓，他内心有平静安宁。说对于这种外来言语的刺激啊，他能够忍受。
And so you can see that this woman had peace within her heart, that she's able to really endure these sort of provokings.
他没有说我女儿已经这样痛苦了，你还这样子酸我，你还这样子的侮辱我。
She didn't say, "Oh, my daughter has already been suffering for this much, and you're already treating me like this."
我们看保罗跟希拉被关在监狱里头，什么时候神迹产生的呢？
We can see when did a miracle happen when Paul and Silas were in prison?
他这个是被锁链啊，什么脚也被铐着，脚也被那个枷锁捆绑。
And they were tied by the hands and the feet.
好可是呢，在什么时候神迹发生呢？
But when did a miracle occur?
当他们唱着赞美神，就是内心有平安，你唱着赞美，你时常能够唱得出来呀。
It's when they were singing hymns, and you can see that they were full of peace in order to even sing hymns to God.
所以我们要交托，产生内心无比的平安。
So we need to have a heart that entrusts, so we can have this unparalleled peace.
所以我们祷告什么时候停止？就是一直要祷告，我们到内心的平安，那才算是真正的交托。
And within our prayers, we need to have this heart of peace in order to fully entrust.
所以这是我们祷告方向啊，就是神啊，你给我内心的平安啊，虽然我现在有困难。
And so this is a way that we can pray. We can pray that God can give us this heart of peace.
那这个妇人呢，她没有放弃啊，她一直跟随主耶稣啊。
And you can also see that this woman, she did not give up, and she continued to follow Jesus.
因为对于她女儿的病就除了主耶稣以外没有人能够帮助她。
And because of her daughter, she knew that Jesus is the only one that can heal her.
也是因为这个妈妈很疼爱自己的女儿。
Because this mother really loved her daughter.
所以因为她爱她深爱她的女儿，她就会坚持她不会随便的放弃。
And you can see that because she loved her daughter so much, she is willing to persevere and not give up.
所以圣经也是告诉我们我们要爱人如己，我们要先爱自己呀。
And so it tells us that we need to love ourselves.
主要你爱自己很深切，你就会求主说主啊，你帮助我，现在有什么困难你帮助我因为自己有困难。
So if we love ourselves, and then we will pray very, very hard for ourselves because we're experiencing this pains firsthand.
当我们要帮助别人祷告也是一样，我们爱他，因为深爱他之后，我们就情之迫切，一直帮助那个我们所帮助祷告的人祷告。
And it's the same. We should treat other people the same way and pray for them as if we were praying for ourselves, and to urgently pray for them.
但是这个要坚持。说刚刚我们在帖撒罗尼迦后书第1章第4节那边说，仍然存什么呢？存忍耐跟信心，说必须要忍耐，一直坚持这个就是忍耐，就是坚持的意思的。
Yeah, and in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 3 to 4, it tells us that we need to have this faith and patience. And yes.
因为我们爱自己，还是爱其他我们所爱的人我们就帮他们祷告，一直坚持。
Whether or not we love ourselves or we love other people, we need to have this type of perseverance.
所以这个起始点刚开始就是因为有困难。
And so you can see that this faith actually started from suffering.
那假如我们现在生活都过得很舒服也没有什么困难，就很难产生信心。
So maybe our lives right now are very comfortable, so it's very difficult to develop your faith.
那没关系，我们现在我们的国家有困难了。
But it's okay because our country is going through a lot of difficulties.
我们国家简直要发生战争了。
Our country is almost on the brink of war.
我们国家疫情还很严重。
Our country still has a very serious issue with the pandemic.
我们现在都处在这一条船上我们都处在这一片土地上。
We're all on the same boat here, and we're all on this land.
所以我们一定要为着我们所处在这个土地上的国家来祷告。
So we need to pray for this land and pray for this country.
所以耶利米书那里说，你们所到的地方，你们要为那个城祷告那个城平安的话，你们也就会跟着平安。
And in Jeremiah, he mentions that you need to pray for this land that you're on, and if this land has peace, then you will have peace.
我们一个人在这个土地上的话这个土地上有困难，我们要帮助这个国家、这个土地上的政府，还有领导者来祷告。
And so, if we are on this land, then we should definitely pray for this country and also for their leaders.
让我们有一个敬拜、崇拜这个敬虔的环境。
And so we can have this a very sacred type of environment.
所以我们想说我们的困难是什么？
So we need to think, what is our difficulties?
好，我们就赶快祷告。
Let us quickly pray.
好，我们一起来祷告。
Let us kneel down and pray.